All right, we're going to go ahead and get started, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today for the webinar on the Replenishment Plus Advanced Planning module for our NetSuite, native to NetSuite solution. We're going to be going through a quick slide deck here to introduce the new advancements we've made with this additional add-on module to our R+NS tool. And then we're also going to demo, and we're going to do that as well. So as we go through the presentation here, I'm sure some questions will come up, so feel free to ask them in the question box on the control panel here. We'll try to answer those all at the end of the conference here. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. All right. So for those of you who have not met us before, we are Demand-Driven Technologies. We were founded with a singular focus of providing next-level supply chain solutions for manufacturers and wholesale distributors. My name is Sean Banks. I'm the Vice President of Sales here at Demand-Driven Technologies. Also presenting today, we'll have Brad Mitchler, who is the Vice President of Partnerships and Product Management. We are headquartered here in Atlanta, Georgia. We're 30-plus employees. We are venture capital backed, which is allowing us to fuel the growth of adding additional products and resources to our customers. So when we talk about Replenishment Plus NS, our NetSuite solution, we'll always want to start with how we're looking to help our clients. And typically when we enter a conversation with a new client, we see that they're using what we view to be the dominant inventory planning tool right now with a little bit of a crystal ball plus Microsoft Excel. We know that about 95% of companies are using spreadsheets to address limitations with their ERP. And what we want to help our customers do is bring effective inventory planning into their ERP, specifically in this case, NetSuite, by using the functionality within Replenishment Plus. So Replenishment Plus helps our clients extend the Suite Cloud platform by giving them the ability to plan inventory natively within NetSuite. So it is Replenishment Plus NS is a materials planning solution built native to NetSuite. That's a very big point. We want to talk about that this is native to NetSuite. You don't need to set up an integration. All the data lives inside your NetSuite instance, and we're just adding additional functionality. And this allows manufacturers and distributors to effectively manage their inventory using the DDMRP methodology. And for those who haven't seen DDMRP before, we'll talk about it in just a moment. So we're able, with this solution, we're able to dramatically improve supply chain performance by aligning inventory to true market demand. And what this results in is improved service levels, optimized inventory levels, and better visibility across the supply chain. So we've delivered dramatic improvements to over 100 clients with our different solutions on the market. You'll see here, here's just some target industries that we work with. We've had some great success in electronics. Automotive has been very big for us recently. We've seen a lot of growth in consumer goods and food and beverage, especially in the NetSuite ecosystem, but also healthcare, aerospace, packaging. All of these are great candidates for leveraging the methodology of DDMRP, which we employ in our software. And I want to call out some of our current Replenishment Plus NS customers. This is a really great accomplishment for us over the past year. We now have over 20 companies using Replenishment Plus NS, our native to NetSuite solution. Over 20 companies, which is more than triple what it was this time last year. So tremendous growth here. We want to thank our customers for helping us with this and being a part of this. It's been an amazing last 12 or so months as we've seen tremendous growth in this area, and it's allowed us to continue to source feedback from new features. Connect customers in our portal and really drive the growth that we're looking to continue into 2020 here. So real quick, we want to just say thank you to all our customers. So one of the key things we want to talk about today is how Replenishment Plus is different than other tools out there. And this comes down to the DDMRP piece that we talked about earlier. A lot of the current MRP systems out there are going to use forecast-driven planning. So with forecast-driven planning, you have planned orders that create supply orders in anticipation of need. And with this, we typically see forecast errors associated with those planned orders, and this results in inventory misalignments and expedite expenses. What we're going to use is DDMRP, Demand-Driven Materials Requirement Planning. And what this is going to help us do is improve the demand signal accuracy by shifting to sales order-driven planning. So only sales orders within a short time horizon are going to qualify as demand allocations, and we know those sales orders are going to give us a near-perfect indication of what's being sold and when it's being sold. Now, the way that we're able to do this sales order-driven planning is using DDMRP buffers. Many of you, I know, have seen buffers like this before. But to just reiterate what these are designed for, DDMRP buffers are designed to ensure constant material availability. We'll put these at the item location level, and we'll have these three zones which help us determine how much inventory to hold and when we need to reorder. We'll have our red zone, which is sized to address item variation, our yellow zone on top of that, which is sized to cover usage over one lead time, and then our green zone on top of that, which is sized to support an average order size or a minimum order quantity. We'll use these buffers, and we're going to place orders based off our net flow equation. For each item, we're going to calculate net flow based off its on-hand inventory, any open supply it has on its way to it, any sales orders or transfer orders or work orders against it that are due today or in the past, and then also any qualified spikes. We'll combine these numbers to calculate our net flow. We'll match that number of our net flow up against the buffer, and if it falls into the green zone, we know we're good. We don't need to place an order today. Once the net flow number falls into the yellow zone, we know Replenishment Plus will notify us that it's time to place an order. And then should we ever find ourselves with our net flow number in our red zone, we know there's a clear priority for replenishment, and we may want to take a look at some additional actions to make sure we don't risk stocking out. So this might be, information if you've spoken with us before, you're probably familiar with this. If this is your first time speaking with demand-driven technologies, this might be new to you. But it's really the underlying logic that goes into everything we design from a software perspective. So now today, we're going to be introducing you to our advanced planning module. This is a tool that we have on the bolt-on side of our software. So if you're familiar with the standalone Replenishment Plus, advanced planning module was released for that piece of software last year. We've just now released it for native to NetSuite. So it's the same functionality that exists for our bolt-on customers is now available for our NetSuite customers. What this is going to do is what the advanced planning module is going to do is enable forward-looking planning based on DDMRP. So this will allow us to do medium to long-term horizon planning, where we're going to be able to project forward buffer behavior. We'll also be able to use projected supply and production requirements. So this is a big feature here that a lot of our customers have been asking for, is an exportable supply plan that you can share with suppliers, so you can start letting your suppliers know what you think you will be requiring from them months in advance. That allows us to do capacity requirements and reconciliation. We're able to see projected inventory levels and working capital requirements, and exception reports highlighting areas where buffer adjustments may be required. Very useful for managing promotions or any type of seasonality. This module will utilize the existing settings and logic of Replenishment Plus MS in generating the forward-looking activity. But the module will not generate committed supply orders. We talked about a couple slides ago how we're not placing orders based off projected behavior. We're still going to use the approach that's built into Replenishment Plus for ordering, but this helps us do the S&OP process of planning ahead. So what we expect our customers to see, the benefits we expect them to see, is alignment with sales and operation planning processes, a view of buffers across historic, current, and future timeframes, and improved management of promotions, seasonality, and product transitions. Also, we'll see accurate assessment of capacity and potential pre-build requirements, and improved tools and reports for supplier collaboration. So this is a lot of really exciting benefits that are going to allow our customers to get even more value out of Replenishment Plus. If you have more questions about Replenishment Plus, you can always check it out on our website, email us at sales@themanagementtech.com, or check out our suite page. I know, looking at the attendees list, a lot of you know Brad and I pretty well as it is, so you feel free to just reach out to us directly as well. But yeah, we're very excited to do this, and we're happy to have a conversation with any of you about how we might be able to leverage the APM in your environment. Now, I'm going to pass controls over to Brad, and Brad's going to walk us through our first ever demo of Replenishment Plus NS APM.
Thank you, Sean. All right. Appreciate that, Sean. But thanks for the intro. It's a good overview of what we're trying to accomplish here with the Replenishment Plus NetSuite APM. As Sean said, thanks for all the clients who have come out to watch the webinar. Really appreciate the support over the past couple of years, and happy to be able to deliver this functionality to our existing client base. We do have a couple of new faces, I think, on the webinar, so I'm going to actually just take a couple moments to do a quick recap of some of the base Replenishment Plus NetSuite functionality, and then we'll dive into some of the more deeper S&OP and simulation type capability that we built in. So everybody can see, and many of you know, that Replenishment Plus NetSuite is built natively for NetSuite. Right now I'm logged into my demo environment here, and you'll notice that all of our menus and screens and features are built right into the top bar here of NetSuite. No data is actually leaving or coming back in NetSuite. We're completely built inside your existing NetSuite system. We are a materials planning solution, and for every part that I manage material for, at each location that I manage those materials for, I'm going to have what's called an R+ record in our system. So I'm going to click on the R+ record for PPJ at the plant. This is a purchased item at our demo plant. And you can see here are some of the basic features and functionalities in our system that drive the reordering priorities within our accept recommended order screen. I've got today's buffer on the left-hand side. Today, my net flow, this blue line, is in the yellow zone, so I'm going to go ahead and reorder up to the top of the green zone. On the right-hand side, I can see a more historical view of my buffer performance in the past. So you can see here a 6-month horizon that I'm looking at, and I can see my planner is planning really well, where every time my blue line goes into the yellow zone, I'm reordering up to the top of green. And my on-hand is fluctuating here between the yellow zone and the red zone, which is rather working quite well. So this is sort of the core functionality and the reorder mechanism here. Obviously, I have my part activity that shows me the current environment of open supply and open demand, so I can see my running balance by day into the future. All of these transactions out here on the left, I can click and go into the details behind them. And then definitely my average daily usage tab shows me a graphical representation of the usage over the ADU horizon. In this case, I believe I'm on a 60-day ADU horizon for this part. So when I'm ready to accept an order for this part, you guys know, many of you, that I can click on Create Purchase Order right here from the screen. Or if I want to create and accept recommended orders in mass, I can go over to the Planning tab and go to Accept Recommended Orders. This is going to pull up all of the parts that have recommended orders against them today based on the DDMRP logic. Parts in red are very critical, and I should go ahead and reorder those today for sure. Many of the parts in medium, we've just gone into the yellow zone here from the green zone, and so they're a little less priority, but I definitely want to accept all the orders that I can today. I can click on Mark All. It's going to pre-populate the order quantities with the recommended order from R+. I'm doing this for buy, make, and distributed parts on the screen here. I'm not filtered. And when I press Generate Orders, I'm actually going to go and create those purchase orders, create those work orders, and transfer orders all in mass at once with very little time. So that's kind of just a quick recap of how Replenishment Plus NetSuite works. And we kind of understand and can see that this is all based on what we need to do today, right? What is my supply, demand, and on-hand picture today? What do I need to order right now in order to service my customers, have constant availability of raw material for production, etc. But many of us, we need more, right? We need to be able to look into the future to see how much I expect to purchase and or have on hand in the future from a financial perspective, from a capacity perspective. And then beyond that, I really need to have an indicator to know if in the future, based on what I know about my business, I expect to have issues with my buffer performance. And so that's really what the APM allows us to do. So the number one, the thing that we need to run the APM is a forecast, right? You guys know we're not a forecasting tool, so we're not generating a forecast, but we will use a forecast in order to drive forecasted daily usage in the software, as well as to drive this advanced planning module, the simulation capability here. I've already loaded a forecast in the system. You can see this is data today, the APM forecast data. It's only for 4 parts here that I'm going to be demonstrating. And basically, any forecast that you've loaded in the system, you can see I've loaded some back in 2018. I can take these and run the simulation based on this forecast that I'm putting in the system. Couple settings here. I've got the weekly setting. I can spread demand either if this is a weekly forecast or a monthly forecast. And I'm going to go ahead and project out 52 weeks. I'm always going to include my current inventory and current supply in my APM simulations so that the starting point is where I am today, right? And I'm not starting from scratch. When I press submit here, the advanced planning module is going to run and simulate forward behavior based on the forecast that we have uploaded in the system for every item that's in the forecast file. I've already done this earlier this morning, so now I can go over to a part, again, the same part, PPJ, and we can see the result at the part level. So PPJ, same part that we were looking at earlier, you'll notice has 2 new tabs on the end of its lower table on the R+ record page. The first tab is the APM tab. This will show us the simulation into the future based on the forecast and the current settings of our buffer. Up at the top here, you can see I simulated 52 weeks, 365 days. My simulation generated 162 supply orders over that time period, and I've got a bunch of days of demand based on the forecast. This is very critical, right? I was stocked out for 32 days in the simulation going forward, and I can see that if I look down graphically here in February. Looks like a couple other days way out in August of next year. I'm projecting stockouts based on large forecast spikes, and we'll show you that in just a moment. Over the next 365 days, I expect to produce or order about 5,000 units of supply at an average size of 30 units, and that gives me my 162 orders. My average daily usage at the end, in total, average over the year is 13, and so my expected average inventory and my projected average inventory have a delta here that you can see. So I expect my business is growing a bit here. Down below, the graph shows me this forecasted period, much like my historical view here at the top. Now I have the forward view of buffer performance, assuming perfect planning. So essentially, this assumes that every day, if an item is in the red or yellow zone, that my planner is always going to order up to the top of the green zone on that day. And that's what we consider perfect planning here for the APM. Really cool new UI element that our team's added to the advanced planning module is the ability to focus on different time periods in the forward simulation. So if I'm looking at seasonality in the summer, I can focus in the summer like this. I'm going to put it back to kind of be the full year. You can drag around this window, so it's really, really nice. And of course, you can put in the dates that you want to see here. And there's some quick zoom options up on the top left as well. As I scroll over days, I can see what my balance is on those days. So on the right-hand side, you'll see the date that I'm focused on, the zone sizes, the net flow, and on this day in particular, my on-hand does stock out. It goes negative by 10 units. So very, very useful for projections here at the item level. Scrolling down, this is an actual visual representation of the forecast that I've uploaded into my system, that APM forecast that I had dated today. These are day-by-day forecasts, and we've got them broken out, spread evenly throughout each week that we uploaded forecasts for. As you can see, this is a really rather seasonal and spiky business that we're managing here. And my gold line is my average daily usage over the year, so the year forecast. So I start at 6, that's my current ADU, and then over time, based on my forecast, my ADU is going to go all the way up to, looks like 19 here in the mid part of the year, and that correlates with my screen up above. So you can see, really spiky behavior. My buffer is flexing up and down quite appropriately. My on-hand is really ranging far beyond the top of the red zone because of some of the spiky behavior, and I do have some of these stockouts. And so it's a really interesting and good way to view my forward projection for my business. The second tab that we've added to the item level is the APM tables tab. The APM table shows me a more data type view of supply, demand, and inventory over this forecasted and simulated horizon. Right now I'm viewing this daily, but I can also summarize this weekly, which will maybe be a little more appropriate on this 52-week horizon, just by clicking this little checkbox right here. This is the total supply by week, total demand by week, the minimum inventory throughout the week, and then my maximum inventory as well. And so here I can see that, again, on the week of 12/23, and then again in January, I've got 3 straight weeks where I have stockouts. Definitely need to do something and change my model in order to address this. This is where the S&OP type function comes into the process is, we're planning day by day using Replenishment Plus, everything is going great, but now I can use the APM to look forward. It's going to point out to me where I have potential issues, and then I can actually go and make adjustments to my my system in order to counteract those stockouts that I'm seeing in the future. Here at the bottom, I've got my supply table. My supply table shows me the date that I will generate supply throughout the simulation. So this serves, of course, as a supply plan for my vendors, right? This is the item location level. I'll show you how we can summarize this in total. But essentially, I'm able to look at supply created really by day or by week or by month, as I'll show you, and I'm able to send that to my vendors, give that to my finance folks so they can project spend on purchase orders, and also my production people so they can manage capacity for production throughout this forecast period as well. So this is the 2 tabs. These are the 2 tabs that we've added to the R Plus page. We've got some really cool reports and some sandbox functionality that I'm going to show you now. If I come up to Replenishment Plus and I go to the Advanced Planning module and I click on the APM Results tab, it will show me all of the items that I have run the APM on, and the items in white, I have no stockout days projected in my simulation, and therefore I do not really need to go look at the details behind these APM runs. But if I look at these other 2 items, they're in red because they have days stocked out projected within the simulation run. So I went 52 weeks, 365 days. 33 of those days are stocked out for PPJ. 32 of those days are stocked out for PPI. And so I definitely know that I need to go and look at these items and make adjustments to my operating model. This is a really cool view. I only have 4 parts. I know that many of the clients here on the webinar have hundreds or more likely thousands of parts. And so it's very important to be able to have this view, sort by the number of days stocked out so that you can focus on the most problem items when you're looking at the APM. So I'm going to go back into PPJ here, and we'll see what we can do about this stockout that we're experiencing. So I've shown you the tables at the bottom. There's also a button at the top called Run Simulation. And this is going to allow me to do some testing around my buffer using the forecast. When I press Run Simulation, it's going to bring me to this page. Right now, it's showing me the same detail on this tab as that we've already seen on the R Plus Record tab. So same information, weekly summation of supply, demand, and inventory. Here's my projection graphically, and I can see that I'm stocking out here, especially in February. If I click on the next tab, you can see the settings that it was run by. The last time I ran the APM, these are the settings that I used, which is a good place to look if you're not sure how long the projection was or what kind of settings you used, what forecast this is showing, etc. Here in my Buffer Variables tab, I'm actually able to change elements of my item settings and re-simulate without changing the actual item settings in my production environment. So here it's defaulted to my current method. It's got my current buffer profile of D11M. I'm not using a planned adjustment factor. My lead time on this item is 10 days and my minimum order quantity is 20. One thing I like to show here is an example of if we change our MOQ from 20 to, let's say, 100, I can actually see the impact that's going to have on my expected average inventory, my supply orders, my buffer, just by rerunning this sandbox simulation here. So right now my expected average inventory is, or my projected average inventory is 84, and I'm generating 162 supply orders. If I increase my MOQ to 100 and I run the simulation, we'll give this just a little bit to run here. We'll actually be able to see the impact that I'll have on my business by making this strategic change here. So here it is. You guys can see immediately that my expected average inventory went up to 113. I'm producing many less supply orders because I'm ordering a lot more each time I order. My stock out days went down actually though from 30 to 9. I'm still stocking out in this period, but for a lesser time because I'm holding more inventory. And then you can see here that my green zone is thickened, right? My green zone, which is size based on my MOQ in this case, is much thicker because I'm using that larger MOQ. So as a business now, I can, when somebody, you know, our sourcing department goes to negotiate rates for the vendors for the new year, we can actually come in the screen and play around with different scenarios in terms of MOQ and lead time to understand the impact that that's going to have on our supply chain. I'm going to go back to 20 days here and run the simulation to get us back to where we were. And we'll talk about another way we can handle that sort of stock out that we're experiencing. All right, great. So we're back to square one here with our projection. You can see that I've gone back to having many days of stock out and a lot of supply orders. The fourth tab here gives me the ability to modify my zone adjustment factors for this buffer. So I can test red zone and yellow zone adjustment factors before I actually apply them to my buffer in my environment. So here's the yellow zone adjustment factor. I'm going to go ahead and add, let's say, 50 units of coverage on my yellow zone adjustment factor. And I'm going to add it from, it looks like my first stock out date here is 120, and it goes over to 25-ish. So we'll go like, to be safe, let's go like 115 to 210. That's my start and end date on this adjustment factor. And I'm going to add 50 units to the yellow zone during that time period. Before I save anything to my buffer, I'm going to run the simulation and we'll see what kind of impact that has. And essentially what I hope that it achieves is that it will prevent me, by putting in this yellow zone adjustment factor early, it will prevent me from stocking out in this February time period. All right, so my simulations run based on the zone adjustment factor that I just put in the software. And you can see that I have indeed eliminated the stock out here in February by boosting up the yellow zone. You can actually see from here to here for this 3-week period, my yellow zone looks a little bit bigger because I'm boosting it up by 50 units for that time period. One lead time before that zone adjustment factor starts, my buffer is going to trigger reorders such that I have more inventory and more protection and more supply in that time period in February. So I like this, right? As a planner, I've tested this, I've run the simulation, and I'm very happy with the results. So instead of Xing out of the screen right now and going back to my PPJ screen to put this in on this part screen, from the screen, actually, I can just press update the R+ record, and it's going to go right those settings changes that I made in my sandbox simulation environment back to the R+ record. So it will bring me back to the R+ record for PPJ at the plant here. And now if I go over to my advanced tab, which hopefully many of you guys are using the adjustment factors, here's the adjustment factor that I just created and applied in my simulation. Now it's on my actual R+ record and is in production, so I should expect this to take effect going forward. And should that forecast come to fruition, I will be ready to go and not have an issue with the stock out during that time period. Okay, so that's one of the key features of the APM is to be able to run these simulations at the item level, simulate results, look at different MOQs, different buffer profiles, right? If I'm seeing many stockouts throughout the last year and I want to try a different buffer profile to increase maybe the variability factor in my buffer, I can go test that before I actually apply that to my buffer, and I'll see a good graphical representation of that into the future on the APM. All right, so we've updated the record. This is really, we've done our job, right? From an S&OP standpoint, we're looking at signals that our system is telling us we need to look at. We don't need to look at every item, only where the APM alerts are telling us that we have days stocked out in the future. I've made an adjustment to my environment, my operating model, to counteract that large forecast spike, and now I'm good to go. Now on to the next item, right, and on to my daily planning. Really, a couple more things I want to show you guys here before we wrap up. Everything I've done so far is kind of at the item level, and that's really good, but if I'm supply planning, I don't want to have to come to each item, look at the supply plan, and then give that to my vendors or to my internal colleagues. We can actually export these results into Excel. This is a sample view of what that looks like when we export. You simply press export. It will email you, the user that you're logged in as a file, the results. And here is what that looks like. Here it is, mini Excel files. So here's the output of that. And it's really cool because you can see the inventory you're expected on hand every day in the simulation. You can see when you'll be creating supply. You can see supply generated is set to true on this date for this item, and the date that I expect that supply to be received. And so I can, day by day, I have all this data, and I can, as you can imagine, there's a ton of stuff that you can do with this really valuable simulation data. I've done one thing here. I created a pivot table earlier today that shows me, this is kind of my supply planning report, okay? I've got the 4 items that I've run the APM for. Across the top, I've got the days that I'll be generating supply orders, and then you can see the actual quantity of supply orders throughout this pivot table. And then at the very end, you'll be able to see the total supply, of course. So this is something that all 4 of these parts were from one vendor. Great report to be able to send my vendor and say, hey, based on our forecast right now, based on the S&OP exercise that we're doing, here's kind of a preview of when we expect and the cadence and the quantities that we expect to hand over to you in the form of purchase orders over the next 52 weeks in this case. Okay, and so we can plan and filter on different time horizons. But super valuable. A lot of our clients have been asking for this functionality for a long time, and I really feel like this fills in a major function of the software that we needed to address. And so I'm really excited to get feedback from you guys, the clients, in terms of how we can use this powerful data here. Just lastly, on the APM tab here, we have this APM buffer trend graph. I know all of you are familiar with the current buffer trend graph where we track our results after an implementation. We track our inventory versus our target inventory. This APM buffer trend graph does the same thing that does, but it's forward-looking. So it starts today, and it looks into the future, and basically it's saying, if I assume perfect planning and the forecast comes to fruition as actual demand in the future, here will be my results. So I can see where my on-hand inventory will be, where my expected average inventory will be, and I expect those to fluctuate around each other, okay? You know, most clients, when we go on site for implementation, their inventory is going to be up high, their expected is going to be down low, and now we're going to have a way using the APM to see how long it's going to take us to achieve those results that we're expecting in terms of inventory reduction. In this case, my demo data set, it looks like I'm already in a good spot, right? My inventory is already in and around my expected average inventory, and so I'm going to just monitor this to make sure that the forecast isn't going to cause me to get crazy high or crazy low. Here's a real big peak here where I go over the top of green on a lot of items based on a major spike in my forecast, okay? So maybe I go talk to my sales team about this to understand the promotional activity that's happening in this time frame. So that is the advanced planning module. I think I've covered everything I wanted to. Just a quick recap here, guys. R+ NetSuite today, all about planning based on today's demand, supply, inventory. How much do I need to make, produce, buy, transfer? But I don't have that forward view, and this module gives us a look into the future where we're going to have issues based on our current model, our current profiles, and then most critically helps me plan capacity, plan supply for my vendors. And then I think the coolest feature in this is that sandbox environment where I can actually A/B test different settings before I actually make any changes and then write those changes back. Great. So that's all I have there, Sean.
Great. Thanks, Brad. So we've got some time now for questions from the audience. I see a few people have asked questions already. So the first question we have here, Brad, is how long does it take to add the APM, or excuse me, implement the APM to an existing Replenishment Plus NetSuite account?
Yeah, that's great. So it's modular. We can add it on. So basically, we add it. The functionality is available immediately. As soon as we can get your forecast in the system, we can start to look at the results and use the APM. So it's definitely not like a full implementation of any sort. I would say, though, that when we activate the APM for a client and we get that forecast in there, we definitely want to schedule some time with our client success team who you're already working with to go and talk about what we're seeing with the APM, how we can best use the APM, and what kind of methods we're going to use to actually drive this S&OP process in our environment. So we'll definitely spend some time on it, but not really a full project plan or anything needed. It's just more additional functionality that I think people are going to be able to take and use immediately.
Got it. Cool. All right, one more. I've got another question here from the audience. Does the APM account for inventory that has been ordered but not fulfilled? Many of our items take months to receive.
Yeah, definitely. So on the settings page of the APM, when I first ran the APM, there's two options. You can either select to include open supply, and the other option is to include open inventory in your advanced planning module run. And we definitely, we have these options available, but I think you're going to want to turn this on, right? You don't want the APM to start at scratch, because then it's going to project from a supply planning standpoint that you need to go out and procure a bunch of new material when you may already have a bunch out there. And so, as you guys know, for a lot of our implementations, when we first start, many of the items we have so much supply and inventory on, we're trying to reduce inventory, and it takes a long time before our net flow gets back into the green zone. And the APM gives us that function to say, okay, based on the current stuff that I've already committed to ordering or inventory that I already have, how long is it going to take for me to get that inventory and that supply into an appropriate position according to the DDMRP logic? So yes, we factor it in. It's super valuable because it gives us a timeline of when we can start to see and achieve results based on our current environment.
Great. Cool. And then the final question here, looks like we don't have any more after this, is when will the APM be available to be added?
Yeah, the APM is available today in our version 4.1 release. I hope I got that right, the 4.1 release. Our last release that went out just before the holiday. We actually activated the APM in clients' accounts. If you're not in the current version, you won't see the menu yet. As soon as you get in the current version, we'll see this advanced planning module drop down. You'll see that even if you haven't taken the APM yet, but when you click on that, it will just prompt you basically to contact us in order to have that added to your account. And so we're expecting to get some contacts here over the next week or so. So you'll see the menus, but you won't have access. Please reach out to us, and we're ready to go today.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's a great transition to wrapping things up here, Brad, is that we've got, a lot of, as customers update to 4.11, 4.1, excuse me. 4.1, they're going to see this advanced planning module tab in Replenishment Plus. If you want to add the actual functionality to your Replenishment Plus instance, you are welcome to reach out to our team either through our website, through reaching out to us directly. And if you have not added Replenishment Plus NetSuite to your NetSuite account, please definitely reach out to us. We'd love to do a demo of just regular Replenishment Plus for you, to talk to you about we can help you with material planning and all the base functionality of our Plus.
Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate your time, and have a great week.
Yeah, thanks so much, everyone.